a necessary conversation about government overreach, or did he damage national security? Join us as we dive even deeper into the enigmatic story of Edward Snowden. Tonight on Newsworthy, two words and two question marks. Have you checked the children? Get out! You have scoured the podcast world and finally found us, Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry, where we delve into all things mysterious, macabre, or out of this world, and decide if they are truly newsworthy. Two words and two question marks.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Buying your first home can be overwhelming, but here are 5 tips to make the process go smoother. Number 1, find a lender, me, Ed Locke, that can answer any questions you might have and help you get pre-approved. There are multiple options available based on your situation. Number 2, work with a real estate agent you can trust. Number 3, don't rush the process. Take your time and know that the process could take some time. Number 4, consider all the costs. Number 5, get a home inspection and review it with your realtor. Keep these tips in mind, budget for yourself, and you'll be that much closer to making your dream of homeownership a reality. So reach out to me at 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity.
Well, gentlemen, how are you?
Hello.
Hey,
Good.
how's it going, guys? Glad to be back.
Glad to have you back, Mr. Clay, for part
Always.
2 of Edward Snowden.
Back-to-back episodes, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That's cool. Speaking of Snowden, I like to plan for the wintertime, Jerry. I ordered a sweater.
You did.
I did.
Nice.
I got it in, and man, I was trying it on, and it was just filled with static electricity.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the good news is I took it back to the place I bought it, and they gave me another one, no charge.
Oh, oh.
That's a big heart. Yeah.
Man.
I had to start it that way because,
What?
That was a great joke. That's why. Yeah. Don't laugh. I mean, yeah, I want you to laugh, but not laugh at me. Laugh at the joke.
With you. Huh?
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know if you guys heard, there was some sad news this past week. The gentleman who invented Tupperware passed away.
What?
No.
They've had to postpone his funeral. They can't find a lid to fix a coffin.
Ain't that the damn truth?
Yes, it is. Every single time.
You fellas, you know who the most popular guy at the nudist colony is, right?
Who's that?
It's the dude who's holding a cup in both hands and 12 donuts.
Oh. Yeah.
Woo!
That reminds me of another good one. How do you spot a blind guy at a nudist colony?
How's that?
Well, here's a hint. It's not hard.
Wow.
I'll give you a hint. No, not even a guess.
we like to do conspiracy theories on our show. We should do the conspiracy theory as to whether Stevie Wonder is actually blind.
Yeah, there is a contentious argument about that.
There sure is. Hey, you know what we haven't done in a long time, Jerry? You reminded me of it a couple of weeks ago.
What is that?
Today in history.
There you go.
So I want to do a couple of days in history. This is going to make Clay really happy. In 1991, Boris Yeltsin is sworn in as the first elected president of the new Russian Federation following the breakup of the USSR. How about that, Clay?
That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah. In 1985, Coca-Cola announces that it will resume selling an old Coke formula following the public outcry of failing sales of its new Coke, which is rumored to have just been the old Coke in new skins.
It's always a rumor.
Always the rumor.
I always thought it was a marketing ploy to sell more original Coke anyway. So I always believed the plan was always to let new Coke fail and yank it away and make people love new Coke or old Coke even more than they did before.
Yeah.
Seemingly it worked.
Yeah.
That it did.
New Coke was one of the most hated things, but yet,
oh my gosh,
Crystal Pepsi has a cult following though.
Isn't that crazy?
It really
Crystal Pepsi
is.
was so trash.
Yeah, it really was.
I'll tell you a funny thing. Back when Coke or Pepsi first started with the flavors, they had a blueberry and then they had a red something. Or
they had a blue
Mountain
Pepsi.
Dew Red came out, Code Red or whatever.
Yep.
I was a manager at Kmart at the time, and we had that upfront space. And Clay, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
That we could trade off, and whoever gave us the best deal on products could take that space. We still had, managing skills back then, so they trusted us to make those decisions. So we did a whole thing. They had Blueberry Pepsi and Code Red coming out the same week. Now, Blueberry Pepsi was trash. I think Code Red's still available.
Oh, yeah.
But what I did was work with the Pepsi salesman, and he built a for real effing freaking fountain right up front. It was two-sided and had Code Red coming out. It was red water, obviously, and then red blueberry Pepsi. So it was blue and red on both sides, and it was a working fountain. And that weekend that we launched that, we had 12 packs. Like I want to say it was 3 or 4 for $2. It was some stupid number, and we still made 20 cents a 12 pack.
Yeah.
And then that weekend we had all the fire departments and the police departments come in, and they were doing like, teaching people how to put their freaking child safety seats in, and they were letting the kids climb in the fire trucks. Dude, it was awesome. We blew the shit out of sales that weekend. It was awesome. Good times.
Good promotion.
Yeah, it was awesome. That's all I got for today in history. Short and sweet.
There you go.
Short and sweet.
So, Edward Snowden Part 2. Let me give a brief recap, and then I'll turn it over to Clay. I know he had several things to discuss that he hadn't yet. In 2013, Edward Snowden released proof to journalists that the United States, in conjunction with some of our best friends, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, the Five Eyes countries, had been given direct access to data on the servers of Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, Facebook, AOL, Skype, and other companies, Apple. This gave them access to email, chat, whether it was video, voice, or data, all videos, all photos, file transfers, stored data, VoIP or Voice over Internet Protocol. All of this came from the PRISM program. Another program was called the Upstream program, which allowed the government to install surveillance devices on the Internet backbone, the network of cable switches and routers through which the Internet runs. This captures all international communications, including emails, phone calls, web browsing content, search engine queries, And the upstream program is made possible by Section 702 of the FISA Amendment, which is where NASA is allowed to target any foreigner outside the United States that is believed likely to communicate foreign intelligence information. Now, that pool of potential targets is so broad that it also encompasses journalists, academic researchers, corporations, business people, and others who are not suspected of any wrongdoing.
People that use the laundromat, people who buy white bread instead of wheat,
Yeah.
Basically, it's that broad. We talked some about what happened to him. He lost basically everything. He lost his job. He was forced to go on the run. He ended up in Russia, where he now has been given citizenship.
By Putin
By
specifically.
Putin, exactly. But he lost his ability to even come visit the country where he was born and raised. So that's a brief synopsis of what we covered last week. Clay, I know you had some other things that you had not covered. What have you got for us?
Well, just real quick about also why Snowden is actually in Russia. He was on his way to actually go to South America, and when his plane landed in Russia, the United States revoked his passport, thus making it impossible for him to leave. So they essentially placed him into exile there, and so anyone out there who has the misconception that Snowden was a Russian plant or that he is a Russian sympathist, that's not the case. He didn't choose to be in Russia. He got stuck there. He's making the most of it since he's been there and has actually enjoyed being part of the culture. But that was not his choice to go to Russia, and it was the United States' choice to get him stuck there.
And I read, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I read that he actually is one of the few people in Russia that is, he leads protests. He talks about things mentioning Putin's name legitimately, where a lot of folks who didn't carry a name couldn't do that. He does have that opportunity and takes advantage of it.
He will speak out against the government there, but he also is very specific in not to do. He doesn't do very many Russian interviews or Russian media interactions because he doesn't want. For one, he doesn't want his face all over the place. He does enjoy some degree of anonymity while he's over there. He does get recognized from time to time, but he does enjoy some degree of anonymity. But he also doesn't want to perpetuate those who feel like he's working with the Russian media or working with the Russian government, anything like that. Glenn Greenwald, the guy who Snowden actually divulged, he was one of the reporters that Snowden divulged his information to, still firmly believes that Snowden has never, ever given up any secrets to the Russian government. That's not what this guy was about. He is a patriot and would not do something like that. He would definitely out his government for wrongdoing, but I don't think he would intentionally harm his government by divulging secrets to another country.
He had quite a bit of information with him, by the way, when he was in Hong Kong. He destroyed
Yes.
every bit of that before he went to Russia.
Yes.
Apparently, he, I think said at the time that he didn't trust them. He was afraid that they might try to forcibly extract the information from him. So before he went there, he destroyed all evidence that he had.
Yep. The only people that had anything that had to do with any of that stuff by the time he left Hong Kong were the reporters. Yep. They had the entire treasure trove.
And that was a really smart way of doing it, too, to be honest. I listened, and I think I mentioned this on the last episode, that I listened to his entire 2 hour and 48-minute interview on Joe Rogan. And he even said that when he decided to do this, they wanted to do it in a way that the normal people could understand. He wasn't trying to sell secrets. He was letting us know because he felt constitutionally bound to let us know.
Yeah.
He also said he didn't believe that he himself, one individual, had the right to determine what was released to the public. So he
Hmm.
released it to journalists and responsible journalists he believed to be responsible, uh, and said, you know what? Here's what I trust you guys with. Now I'm going to leave it up to you to determine what you think is safe, because he himself said the governments have a lot of information they have to keep secret to
Sure.
keep people's lives
Yeah.
intact. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of secrets they have to keep. He said, I'm not trying to destroy all of them. I'm just saying that there's certain things that they went way too far with.
So let me ask you just a sidebar question. Here we go. Sorry. In today's media, do you think you would have outreach? Do you think that if this happened in today's society, do you think there's enough media outlets that would just give the information and not slant it?
I don't think it's changed at all in the last 11 years.
Okay. Just
Do
about
you?
ask. Yeah, I think it does. I think it has.
In what way?
Hey, let me rephrase
I,
that.
I,
I don't know that the people would believe the media from one side or another, depending on who released what, whether the people would believe it or not.
They
I
would.
think maybe that way.
Here's why they would. Sorry, Clay, I know we keep interrupting you, but here's why they would. If CNN, Fox, NBC, and CBS all comes out with the same story, we believe them, right?
Well, they do that all the time. They all seem to read the exact same notes from every story.
And we
That's
have no problem believing that when it's the same story. But when it's told absolutely different versions, and this is a story I believe that they would have reported basically as it was given to them.
I hope so.
So in that case, I don't think the people would not believe. Go ahead,
Okay.
Clay.
Sorry, Clay.
no, I just wanted to make the point that at the time of this disclosure, this was probably the waning years of newspaper and print as we know it. Which, as we in today's media, the newspaper format is really not that prevalent. So these stories were first broken in the New York Times, the Washington Post, um, as well as the European publication as well. Um, but then the TV networks picked up the stories and ran with it. In comparison, today, I don't know. I think the stories would get out. I just don't know that they would get out in the same fashion that we saw them get out back then. Maybe you might see the internet or alternative media get the stories out faster and more efficiently and more honestly before the network media even started talking about it. There's a reluctancy right now for the legacy media to even discuss things that they don't have government approval on to discuss anyway. So it would all depend. And for the record, the editors of the major newspapers, before they ran this story, they ran it by the NSA and the CIA to make sure that they were okay to publish this story and not do any detrimental harm. And they were told they weren't told not to, put it that way. But I think today in today's media it would the story would still get out, and it may or may not have a slant, but I think it would just get out in a different way than we saw it get out the first time.
Yeah. Good deal. I just thought I'd ask. I know that one of the things that most people agree that in one way, and depending on what side of the aisle you fall on, yours or somebody's media is all slanted one way or another anymore.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it doesn't, and it again, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You have your, most Democrats feel Fox is slanted. Most Republicans feel CNN, MSNBC. Those are all slanted. Um,
And they're all correct.
and every one of them's correct, right?
well, one guy
Anyways,
that I didn't get to kind of drill into very much on the last episode that I did want to make mention of was a guy named Lieutenant General Michael Hayden. And this is my own personal opinion, but I think he might be one of the most evil men on the planet, to be honest with you. He was the former director of the NSA and later on the CIA. And this was the guy who he was actually in charge of the NSA while Snowden was working there. There's a picture. Snowden had his picture made with a function with the man. But this guy initiated the policy that the government wanted everything with regard to like foreign, domestic, bulk data collection. Um, President Bush, during right after the Patriot Act went through, and we were still in the the throes of our Middle East conflict. President Bush asked Hayden one on one in a private conversation if he would continue to snatch up everyone's private data, even though he knew it was unconstitutional, if he was asked to do so on the president's authority. Hayden's answer was, "Yes, sir, I will." That
But I wonder why he
alone,
was asked that.
that alone is evidence that the government does not give a damn about the Constitution. Here's a good example. The Patriot Act was a terrible bill in so many ways, but yet it was publicly brought to the House and the Senate for a debate and a vote. And the public got to view that process and see what all that was about. Bulk data collection was never ever brought up for a vote because they knew it was illegal and they knew it was unconstitutional, yet they did it anyway. And they had every intention of continuing to do so secretly without the public's knowledge or consent until Snowden came along and told everybody what was going on. I think Stephen mentioned this a little bit earlier in the previous episode. But what the deep state actually is, it's often overcomplicated. The deep state is simply all of the unelected career government employees, bureaucrats, military leaders, intelligence operatives that remain in power year after year, even after elected officials come and go. So, but one problem is that, I guess, one overlooked problem is that government changed and the public really was never aware of it. We went from having a seat at the table and actually having a say in how we're governed to just being subjects that are being ruled over more or less. Instead of declaring the actions of these agencies illegal, our government makes laws retroactively that make the actions of these agencies legal now. And that is very prevalent with the surveillance aspect of government. They will all of a sudden make everything okay, make it not okay to, or make it okay to not have a warrant to do all this bulk data collection through Patriot Acts and FISA Acts and all these different legislative tools that they use. But earlier we were talking about how I guess there were claims, I guess, that Snowden's a traitor because the information that he divulged was basically jeopardizing the government, jeopardizing the operatives that use the surveillance, doing detrimental damage to the manner in which they keep the country safe.
Clay, I can give you the exact quote.
Okay.
It says, and this is coming from Keith Alexander, the NSA director.
Okay.
The guy who was NSA director when Snowden leaked the files. He's clearly an individual who betrayed the trust and confidence that we had in him. This is not an individual who is acting, in my opinion, with noble intent. What Snowden has revealed, has caused irreversible and significant damage to our country and our allies. That's a direct quote from Keith Alexander.
Now,
The
you said
government
deep quote.
claimed
It's
the
not just
government
him.
claimed that
Basically,
Snowden's
all of them said it.
Right.
yeah
Right.
the government claimed that Snowden's disclosures were dangerous and did damage to the government's ability to keep us safe, while simultaneously placing those responsible for our safety in danger. 11 years later, the government has yet to provide any evidence that either accusation is true. Who'd you say the gentleman was? The former NSA
Keith Alexander.
Alexander. Yeah, he just made a claim, but he didn't provide any evidence of how that damage was done.
And I think I just gotta pull it out here. When he said "and to our allies," these are the same allies he's talking about that we were actually spying on,
that we're currently spying on,
and that we're probably currently spying on.
Absolutely.
That he's talking about. Well, and anybody who has a half a brain knows that all countries spy on each other. Friends, I keep my enemies close and my friends closer, or my friends close and my enemies closer.
Yep.
No, it's the first one.
Okay, yeah, but we want to know what Britain's doing behind closed doors, even though they're our biggest ally, because we want to know that if we decide to do whatever, we want to know what their weaknesses are so that we can coerce them to join us in doing whatever.
But these programs took it to new levels.
Oh, sure.
That had never been heard or conceived of before on the face of the earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But why?
Because we found out we could.
No, I know.
Well, and one of the problems, and I'm still not 100% convinced that they've solved it. Now, I mean, maybe they have, but it's an infinite amount of data, and I don't know that they can sift through all of the data. So essentially, what they do is they store it all at Bluffdale, Utah, NSA server site. Basically, is what it is. It's a ginormous building full of servers that stores everybody's data. And so, but because it's such a haystack of data, and they have to store it so that in the event that they have an investigation on you down the road, in case you commit future crimes. And yeah, what was that one oh man, what was that one movie where they tried to predict everybody's crimes before they happened? Minority Report, exactly.
Yeah, it was a great movie, by the way.
Yeah. So
I love Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise gets a lot of shit in his world for his movies, but I really like a lot of his movies. They're usually well thought out. Yeah, they follow a general trope, but they're usually well done and well thought out, at least.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. There were so many things that Snowden was accused of, and you mentioned the one. What was the NSA director?
Yeah.
You go through the list. I mean, it doesn't matter. FBI, CIA, Department of Justice. Every single one of them was saying similar things. Get into politicians. It didn't matter. Right, left, Republican, Democrat, Obama, Trump. Trump originally, before he was elected, had said a few things about he would consider pardoning Snowden.
Yeah.
Shortly after he was in office, the Republican and Democratic politicians got a hold of him and said, no, you can't be doing this crap. And real quickly, he reversed it.
Doesn't it make you, and I'm talking to both of you guys, doesn't it make you just a little angry that all of the people in power that we put in power think it's okay to get all up in our business?
It absolutely does. Do you know what makes me even more angry?
What's that?
That the American people doesn't give a shit, and we turn around
Right.
and continue
Yes.
to re-elect the same freaking people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The politics, it's kind of like
Kentuckians are amongst the worst. We've had Mitch McConnell in office for 40 freaking years.
Yeah. I was talking about the deep state, the unelected people. Well, yeah, there's only so much you can do about the guys who aren't elected. But when it comes to the elected politicians, when it comes to our senators and representatives, we totally 100% control that.
Yeah.
Senators every 6 years, representatives every two. We get to decide whether they come home and stay at home or get to go back.
So
And
I
we
got a
continue to send the same ones.
I got a question, and I'm asking this completely off the top of my head because you two guys are most political guys I know. As the election draws closer, given our current status, do we do an election show or no? What do you guys
What do
think?
you mean?
Y'all want
Do we do an election show?
just do we
From my standpoint.
from this from just general politics? Do we do one political show every 4 years? I think it's important enough.
First, let's wait and see who the final candidates are going to be. I don't think it's going to be Biden.
No, I told you
Shouldn't
that.
be.
Oh, it's already Harris. I mean, it hasn't been officially announced, but you can listen to the way they're talking and the way that she's presenting herself. Whereas in the past 3 years, she appeared to be drunk most of the time she was speaking publicly. She just gave a speech the other day that was perhaps the most crisp and precise speech I've ever seen the woman give.
Definitely a teleprompter.
They're running her.
Could be. It's still a huge mistake in my humble opinion. Uh, if they want to have a chance of beating Trump, they can run the old boy out of West Virginia, who's the most moderate Democrat, and would probably, to me, he would have a absolutely fantastic chance of beating Trump.
Well,
But
there was some talk that Bashir was actually in the discussion for a possible replacement, but as it turns out, as I understand it, the DNC does not have a mechanism to replace anyone unless they voluntarily step down. So that means that they would have to have Biden and Kamala both step down. The crux of that, the catch of that is by their own rules, the only person that would actually be an heir to the $175 million that have been raised in Biden campaign funds would be Kamala Harris. So if both of them, for some reason, were convinced to step down, whoever replaced them by their own rules would not have access to that money. So
Wow.
I think the decision has been made that it's going to have to be Kamala Harris to carry the ball now.
that's not exactly true. Money that has been given to Biden that would be true. Money that's been given to the Democratic Party gets to use it as they want.
Well,
or who they want.
that is true. That is
And
true.
a huge
I
part of
think
this money
I
is
think this
Democratic Party money.
yes, part of it is Democratic Party money, but the 175 million was raised by Biden.
Wow, that's a
I
lot of
don't
money.
even know Biden. I think Biden would have to agree to turn that over to Kamala. I think.
Well,
By the rules of the DNC, as I heard it reported, that it transitions to the vice president candidate.
If he was to step down, first of all, I don't think he's going to step down unless he agrees with who they're going to put run in place.
this is an ego thing now.
No, I'm telling you, he'll step down if enough. He said as much that he will if enough people in his own party says he should. And
Well, if
I think
Barack
that's probably
Obama
gonna
makes a sudden trip to the White House and has a one-on-one conversation, and then the old man comes out and says, "Well, I talked to Barack, and I agree that for the best interest of the American people and the Democratic Party." I mean, I could see it playing out. I could see it playing out in the next 7 to 10 days. They'll if he's going to step down, it's going to happen in the next week to 10 days.
All right. Well,
we should see.
we shall see. I think we should do a show once we realize who the candidates actually are. I don't really give a hot crap about either one of the two candidates right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think I've voted for a party candidate since George Bush's first term, to be honest.
You didn't vote second term. Who'd you vote for?
I don't think it was George. I think it was
Really?
I didn't like the Patriot Act at all. And it's the same stuff. So from there, we went to Barack Obama. I couldn't stand Barack. I couldn't stand his opponent, which was
Well, he had two.
no.
The
at
first one was
the first one, McCain. Absolutely hated McCain. Couldn't stand to look at
Who
him.
was it next time? Romney?
Romney, who's a rhino, might as well vote for Barack if you're going to vote.
Okay, Trump Jr., well, you're a rhino.
I haven't even. Why do you say that? I have never voted for Donald
Here's
Trump.
why I say that. He invented the word.
What?
Rhino.
He did not.
Bull crap. Show me where it was used before Donald Trump. He invented the word. The word came from Donald Trump. Which is
Oh,
his way
no.
of what?
Oh,
Taking every Republican he didn't like and trying to humiliate them by saying, well, you're a Republican in name only, which he does that to everyone who disagrees with him on anything. Yeah, I'm not a Trump fan.
no. Say it isn't so.
Yeah. There's a lot of good ideas he had, and he's one of the biggest assholes in the entire world. So
I can say with some amount of pride, I haven't voted for him either. So
yeah, it's not even with me. It's not pride. It's sadness when I go to the polls and think I can't vote for either one. I can't, with a clear conscience, vote for a Republican or Democratic nominee. I just can't. So that's. Let's go back a second. We've talked about
Real quick before you go back, John DeStasso created the term rhino.
when.
1992.
Very nice. Now let me ask you something. Before you just Google this, had you ever heard of this dude in your life?
No, never.
Before you had read that, the only instance of this word being used originally came from where?
The Republican Party?
No, Donald Trump.
Uh,
Tell me what person in the Republican Party used it other than Donald Trump, other than this guy that you had to Google.
I'm going to say this, and then we need to get back to Edward Snowden.
Hey, I didn't
We're not
bring it
gonna
back up. You did.
I'm just saying. I remember very specifically the charges of Mitt Romney being a rhino happening during Mitt Romney's run as president.
you might be able
For
to
president.
go back and find some Rush Limbaugh of him actually using
Absolutely.
the term.
It would be somebody
Yeah.
like Rush or Sean Hannity or somebody who would have said that. And I absolutely. But I do very specifically recall that charge being laid at Romney's feet, and I was like, makes sense.
I just Googled that, and it says Senator Mitt Romney, Republican from Utah, has long been called the pejorative rhino, an acronym for Republican in name only, as
Right.
you said. That's in part because of the blood feud with former President Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's what Google says when I Google was Mitt Romney called a rhino.
All right. Well,
Anyway, where were we?
we're back to Edward Snowden because
Let's
that's what
talk
this
for a
show's
minute
about.
why, what he did, the program that he exposed were illegal. We've got to talk around it. Let's talk specifically about why it was illegal. First of all, let's talk about whether or not it was illegal. We said it was. Here's a couple of court cases. The United States District Court for the District of Columbia in 2013, Judge Richard Leon ruled that the NSA's bulk collection of phone metadata likely violated the Fourth Amendment's prohibition against unreasonable search and seizure. In 2020, the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit Court ruled that the NSA's mass collection of Americans' phone records, as revealed by Snowden, did violate the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and probably the Fourth Amendment. The court emphasized that the government failed to demonstrate the relevance of the collected data to any specific authorized investigation. We've talked a couple of times about the Fourth Amendment. Here's what the Fourth Amendment says. The right of the people to be secure in their person, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, every one of these programs that Snowden told us about, skip every bit of that. No search warrants, no probable cause, no description of places or persons to be searched, nothing. They took it upon themselves to say we have the right to collect data from every person in America and in all probability the majority of the people on the face of the earth, regardless of whether we think that there is any chance that they committed any crime, regardless of whether we have any probable cause, we're going to collect it all. In the words of your one boy that you quoted earlier, and that was part of what he said, was we want to know it all. We want to see it all. We want to collect it all.
That's what I was going to say. We were talking about how they store it and how they're never going to get through it, but they use code words. Jerry, you and I used to make fun of when you lived in Washington. We used to make fun of how many people were actually listening in on our call because we've talked about the president and war
and bombings and
terrorism.
Any word that we thought could possibly get us on a list.
And we were definitely on that list. In fact, I'm surprised whenever we go to fly, we're not like, given either be blacklisted or get a prostate exam while we're there. And that's what makes this whole ridiculous. You're going to have your people out there, Clay, and you run into these every single day that say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have a worry.
That's the problem. That's why this is still going on. Too many Americans think that.
Yeah.
It gives me a little bit of security. Perceived security is all it is. It's not really security.
Because
they have no idea who they're trusting that security to. Right. It's just the government. They have no idea who these people are that are invading their privacy.
I personally
I don't. I know I've got some assigned to me, but I don't know them personally. And I mean,
they're like peeping in your windows.
Well, they may be enjoying what I'm searching online, but it's one of those things, man, that we just people trust the government more than they probably should.
Absolutely.
And with no just cause. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just, you and I are, what was I going to say? You and I and Jerry, for instance, can sit here and rail against but if they wanted us to be smushed, they could smush us in like no one ever thought about it.
Yeah, I'm too insignificant. I don't have enough reach. If we had a bigger voice, man, you might feel some of that coming down on you.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize for that. But you brought up a very good point about not knowing who has access to this information. And I specifically, and I showed it to you several years ago. I don't know if you'll remember it or not. But there was an NSA agent who utilized phone calls from his girlfriend, who was married's husband, to come between them, cost him his business, and get his wife and him to separate so that he could have her. Do you remember me telling you about that story?
I do.
That's the kind of stuff that there's no warrant involved. There's no legality saying that this guy is any kind of a criminal. I don't know if he was he could have ran a dry cleaning shop for all I know. I don't know. But it certainly wasn't national security, something that the NSA should be being able to have access to those records.
But Stephen, it happens at all levels. That's the thing. Because just about 3, maybe 4 years ago, the Lexington Fayette Urban County government had to deal with the Lexington police officer here in my hometown who had placed GPS tracking devices that he had obtained from the police department on his girlfriend's vehicle.
I hope they fired him.
Well, he was disciplined. Of course, the police did an internal investigation and found that little to no wrongdoing was committed. But
this is why you don't give unlimited power to anyone. It will be abused.
Of course.
You just mentioned happens so much that NSA agents have a term for it, where they would spy on their own love interest. They called it love INT. It's short for love interest.
Yeah,
literally.
They had a specific program.
Yeah. So what's happened to this date as of right now where we stand? So in 2015, Congress rewrote the law that allowed the NSA to scoop up everyone's record. The USA Freedom Act, which President Obama signed, now prohibits, and I'm using air quotes here, the bulk collection of phone records by American citizens. And I quote, "The act also includes other changes to our surveillance laws, including more transparency to help build confidence among the American people that your privacy and civil liberties are being protected. That's what Barack Obama said. President Barack Obama said shortly after signing the USA Freedom Act.
Mm-hmm.
There's been another big shift as well. Many Americans now better understand how governments and private companies like Facebook, Amazon, and Google collect personal data. Most of the time, most Americans allow that. I raised my hand because I'm guilty because we don't read the damn, what's that called? That we have to sign and say the agreement. Terms of agreement.
Yeah, or
And
whatever.
user license agreement.
Yeah, that.
Nobody reads that because they're just trying to send a message to their buddy or exchange a meme.
Right.
Nobody's
Right.
reading a 900-page document, and everybody
Right.
knows it. And it doesn't matter if you read it or not because there's a line very short down in there that says we have the right to change this with or without your knowledge whenever
Right.
we want. So it's a bullshit. It's a bullshit document.
And
Yeah.
furthermore, even if that line wasn't there, it's a proven fact that almost every major company has violated all of the rules they do.
Yes, absolutely. Here.
So this in turn has led to a much wider use of encryption. Snowden actually says in 2016 marked the first year that the majority of internet traffic was encrypted, and that trend continues. Unfortunately, there's no sign anytime soon that Snowden's case will be
I don't know where
resolved.
you got that part, but I would say it's 90% wishful thinking. Do you know how many programs we know for sure has been ended that Edward Snowden told us about? Zero.
Right. I 100% agree.
And keep in mind that these programs were probably about 20 years old when he divulged them. So
Yes,
they've been
absolutely.
going on for a long time. And even though the ones that he outlined in his tsunami leak may have been by certain names, they've probably, the names have changed and some of the operations about them have changed and probably become more sophisticated. But they're still doing it.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's just like entitlement programs. Once the government starts one, they never end one.
Awfully hard to
Or it's like cops and ID. It's like crack. They gotta have it. Once they get it, they gotta have it. They gotta have. Give me your ID. I gotta have your ID. I gotta have your data. I gotta have your information. I gotta know where you're going. I gotta know where you've been. You know, it's the same shit. It's just on an internet level. It's on a electronic level now.
So Clay, you know, my youngest son Nick is almost done.
I know
being a police officer for
and that's a good thing.
A large, because Nick is a great guy, and we need people like him.
And the Louisville Metro Police need more guys like him for sure.
Yeah. So, but when he is finished and he is able, because we have to make sure that he's not going into some sort of because he really wants to do some secretive programming.
I don't know if we should get him on here. We're not going to help his career.
Well, I was just going to bring him in and just and have him and Clay in, and we could all just do a thing.
No, that's bad. You're going to get your son fired before he gets started.
Well, I do know that my son, and I'm not naming him now because I don't want him to, but.
And I know Clay thinks highly of him, but I also know that Clay is as much or more of a.
Well, here's the thing.
Well, I can make this. Listen, guys, I can make this real easy. I only have one thing to say to Nick. I don't answer questions.
There you go. Can I give one specific example and talk about what happens when people try to do the right thing?
I would absolutely love it.
Try to step up. Back in 2013, shortly after that, it turned out that, as Clay just said, the tsunami of releases that Snowden had done began to be made public. It was we found out the email address that he was using at the time, and it was from a company called LavaBit. And his email address was ed-snowden@lavabit.com. The company had gotten started and had gotten semi-famous at the time because they were one of the first companies to come out with encrypted email. They had paid accounts. They also had free accounts. They had almost 500,000 users. And When it turned out that Edward Snowden was using them, the American government went to them and said, "We are going to need your secure socket layer private keys." That would give them access to the entire email account of every single user, almost 500,000 users. And the owner and CEO of the company said, "There's no way I'm giving it to you." He said, "I will." He said, "I have complied with several search warrants you guys have given me. In one case, it was a child pornography. But he said, "I will absolutely give you access to his account. I am not going to give you access to all 400 plus thousand users' accounts." The government said, "We are not going to agree to that because that would require us to trust you." Uh, he was convicted of contempt of court. He shut his company down and walked away and said, I'm not giving it to you." He was convicted of contempt of court.
If only our phone companies would do the same.
Well, he shut his company down. He faced bankruptcy almost. He finally reopened 4 years later. He had devised a system called the dark internet mail environment. And you can go to lavabit.com and sign up for an account. They no longer have free accounts. And the only keys, you have control of them.
Wow.
He can't give the government. He designed a system that he can't turn over access to anyone. So thank goodness for people like him. But guess what? When you decide to say no to the government, when they tell you what they want, this is what happens.
Yep.
Yep.
They find you guilty. They ruin your financial life.
And
they don't care what hell they put you through. If you don't agree to give them what they want, how they want, when they want it, this is the repercussions.
and this is one of the problems. And really, this couple of episodes have been really fantastic. They're also very political, and there's no way to separate the two. I don't believe, because it demonstrates just how far our system. Like I love, and I saw it on a meme, and I'm quoting from a meme, and I don't care, but it was so accurate. I love this country. I am so. I wake up every day and I'm blessed that we are in the greatest country God gave man.
Absolutely.
I absolutely freaking hate our government. And I
But
think that the two are mutually exclusive. I think that that's okay.
Because we're
Because,
the greatest country in the face of the earth doesn't mean we can't be better.
right.
And improve.
yes,
And the way that we are going right now, and Edward Snowden just peeled back a small corner of the bed sheet, if you will, and let us see what the government is at least capable of 20 years ago. And like Clay said earlier, the government and their technologies and what they're able to do is 20 years of anything that we know of as civilians. Period.
Sure.
We're gonna information like YouTube and the internet and the things we're able to do with our phones they're doing that 20 years from now on a completely different level. The VR, the technology, the AI that is being developed right now by our government is 20 years in advance of anything that we have access to as civilians. So,
oh, and two, just going on the original point that you made, where all of this does sound like it has some political overtones. It's very easy to get bogged down in the minutia and feel like this is a political discussion. But the one thing I've found in my personal surveillance activism is that this is one topic that actually transcends political party.
absolutely.
This is a topic, this is an issue that there's commonality on both sides of the aisle. And I can talk to liberals about this topic as easily as I can talk to conservatives, and vice versa. It's interchangeable. And it's one of the few, if you want to call it a political topic, it's one of the few in existence that you can actually get people from every enclave together in a room and find commonality and find people that are of a similar mindset, because nobody likes this. Nobody likes to be observed all the time.
And
But
this, well, I don't mean to step on your toes, Clay,
oh
but
no, that's all I got.
to what you're saying, This is the one thing that even though senators may agree, when people talk about the deep state, using air quotes, this is what they control. And they can tell the senators to piss off, basically, and will, because they deem it that important. Knowledge is, G.I. Joe taught us many years ago when I was growing up, knowledge is half the battle. And if they can get any kind of knowledge advantage over the American people, they've already won half the battle, whatever that battle is going to be in the future. And to your point earlier, Jerry, and I believe this with my heart of hearts, 200 years ago, we decided, F this, we've had enough over a 0.2% tax increase on some frickin' tea. And not everybody drank tea. You know what I mean? And here, we are literally letting, by our little devices that we carry with us every single day. Apple put out a thing the other day that said, even when we don't receive messages, we open our iPhones almost 200 times a day just to scroll something, look at something, whether we got a message or not. How much data, how much of our personal life are we just giving away? It's stupid. It's stupid.
Oodles and gobs.
And here's the thing, we've developed a society where we can't backtrack. Yeah, you've got your people that go to Alaska and leave in the bush. Those are the exceptions. Those are not the rules. In today's world, you just can't do that and have a life. Honestly.
Yep.
So.
Well, I know we've only got a few minutes left, man. I've got a few Snowden quotes. Might be a good way to kind of wrap it up. So.
Yeah, I want to bring up, before you do that, because I want you to end the show, Clay. Can I just say something here real quick?
Brother.
Edward Snowden, and I brought this up, said in 2018, he wrote on social media to his nearly 6 million followers. And here's what he said. And I want to bring this up because this applies to the future, not the past. Everything we've talked about so far is stuff we know that happened in the past. He says, and I quote, "Do not ever trust OpenAI, which is ChatGPT." I think that's what, 5th edition now, 4th edition?
That's one. There's many.
Yeah. "You have been warned." And he said this following the appointment of retired U.S. Army General Paul Nakasone, I want to say Paul Nakasone, to the board of artificial intelligence technology company. Snowden, and then it goes into what Snowden used to do, wanted to say that as a first priority, Nakasone will join the board's Safety and Security Committee. And that is a direct quote from ChatGPT. Apple is integrating ChatGPT into its experiences, but the reason he doesn't want that he wants to warn folks is because Nakasone used to work directly. Let me read his direct quote. "They've gone full mask off. Do not ever trust OpenAI or any of its products, ChatGPT or etc." Which, I'll be honest, I use a lot in my real estate business. There is only one reason for appointing an NSA Gov director to your board. This is a willful and calculated betrayal of the rights on every person on earth. You have been warned. So I just wanted
to. What was he saying was the reason?
Because Nakasone used to run the NSA, and now he's on the board of directors. So what's the reason for doing that? Because it's a direct correlation between ChatGPT and the NSA. That's why. I've stumped Jerry. He's just sitting
there. I just don't know how you get from point A to point B.
What do you mean? Would you trust an NSA officer, especially a leader, on anything that has to do with communications?
I don't trust computers.
Okay, fine.
So perfect. I don't trust Microsoft. I don't trust before AI.
Okay.
When you add AI into it, I absolutely don't trust them. But I still don't get what the connection between. Is he saying that he thinks NSA controls this private
Absolutely.
company?
Or at least as
I think he's probably suggesting that they're embedded in the company now.
There you go.
And not that they're, there's a difference between a private company and an NGO, which is a non-governmental organization, but
which they're not
there is
NGO.
a bit of a trend right now for retired government workers to go into the private sector, and it's very prevalent in the media.
I just want to
Also, in
say,
many
first of
cases,
all,
gives them the look of legitimacy, right? When you've got some career government person you bring in, it makes you look like you're legit.
sure.
All those people who trust the government, we got a ton of those because we
Right.
keep electing the same dudes back in office. So I think that's the biggest thing it says. Not that they're in bed with them, but as far as I know, I mean, OpenAI gets a ton of money from Microsoft, but they are an independent nonprofit company. So for them to be in bed with, I would need to hear. I think a lot of Edward Snowden and his opinions. I would need to hear some more on
Sure.
what he thinks.
Well, I
the
didn't want to
correlation is.
dig into all that at the end of the
Right.
show. I just wanted to let you know his warning.
Gotcha.
You feel free to do that. Also, I want to say, so for the people listening, we actually have video of each of us, and I just want to say, watching Clay think is fantastic. I just love it, Clay.
And we promised him the chance.
Yes,
to
please
the show
finish
on
this
You guys
out
cut
here,
out.
Clay.
Mr. Club.
Oh.
Come on out
The floor is
here.
yours.
Finish this up, Clay.
It keeps dropping out on me.
Oh no, that's
Can
terrible.
you hear us now?
Reconnecting.
There you go.
Reconnecting.
Well, we'll
Okay,
let him
well,
connect up.
yeah.
And we'll just talk smack about him while he's not here.
Until it gets back.
All
I
right.
can absolutely guarantee you.
You got me
we
back?
Should not trust it. I work with with a few different companies on training AI. There's no reason to believe there's anything to trust. Several companies have prohibited their employees from using AI for a work basis from the sense of they know that they have no idea who's looking at everything that you type. So, in your real estate world, can you use AI to help you with a listing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you trust them enough to put something that you don't mind if it gets made public? Absolutely not.
Right.
Because you have no freaking idea who's looking at each and everything that you're typing. Trust me, I know. Part of the work that we do in training AI is to take different conversations that have been had here, given the people's minds. But some of the stuff that I read, and it's not like I've got security clearance or anything like that, but yeah, do not trust AI. For many standpoint.
Right. I
We
agree
even
with
got
you.
into are they going to attempt to take over the world someday? That's a totally different story.
Dude, I've seen the
Well,
movie.
like
I'm not into it. I've seen all the movies.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
iRobot,
Hey, there you go.
Terminator.
iRobot. What are the three things? The three rules, right?
Yeah.
They're designed to try to help humans, try to prevent humans from incurring hurt, pain. What happens when they decide that they can do a better job of it than us?
Right. Right.
And you could easily see a computer system coming to that realization.
Some of the robots that are actively out on tour that they talk to, and they come up with some creepy ass answers sometimes. Just creepy. And again, we go back to that whole thing where what we have access to is 20 years behind the freaking what the government already has.
Yeah, you said that a minute ago, and I agree to that in most respects. That's not true in AI. It's not even close to being true in AI.
You think
20
not?
years ago, there was no AI.
That's true.
There just was nothing.
My man
Hey,
is
are you
back.
there?
Clay is back.
Woo! We were
I
just
don't know
talking
what
smack
happened
about you while you were gone.
I heard a little bit of it, but then I realized I wasn't with you guys, so I dropped out and came back. So
Sorry about that. I want to say it's not my fault this time because I have a brand new modem, and router sitting in there on the computer desk. I'm stoked. That thing's freaking lightning fast.
nice.
Yeah. So Clay, we promised you the opportunity to finish out the show, man, and talk to us about Mr. Snowden.
Just a few quotes to end up with. One of the things that he said that I found was pretty interesting is that America's fundamental laws exist to make the job of law enforcement not easier but harder. This is not a bug, it's a core feature of democracy. He also said that ultimately arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say.
Amen. What a good quote.
It's a great quote.
Awesome.
These programs, he went on to say, speaking about some of the programs that he divulged in his information dump, these programs were never about terrorism. They're about economic spying, social control, and diplomatic manipulation. They're about power. And I agree with that. When exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you're being ruled by criminals. And he was definitely somebody who exposed crimes, and it was treated like a crime, and we are being ruled by criminals. And then the last thing he says here is, we do well to remember that at the end of the day, the law does not defend us. We defend the law. And when it becomes contrary to our morals, we have both the right and the responsibility to rebalance it toward just ends.
I love it. So I want to do something a little different tonight. We usually go around the room and ask if it's newsworthy or not. I want to change that just a little bit tonight.
Sure.
I want to ask you, Jerry, and I'll start with you.
Okay.
Do you believe Edward Snowden is a traitor or a hero?
No, he's an absolute hero.
Absolutely. Clay?
Oh yeah, without a doubt, he's a hero, man. And
I,
he needs to be exonerated and brought home, and at the very least, given a fair trial.
I agree that he needs to be exonerated. If I'm Edward Snowden, I'm never stepping foot in America again because I don't think I'd live very long. And I just mean that 100%. I feel like that people in the deep state or people that are so anti Snowden would make his life short and miserable, to be blunt.
I don't know. I would disagree in that because I don't think he's got more to release. He's already done the
Yeah.
harm.
Well,
Yep.
What
maybe
else has he got to tell on?
that's true. All that would do, I guess, is bring him back up. So,
Yes, make
but
him
yes,
more of a
I
martyr.
also agree Edward Snowden is 1,000,000% a hero. And I think that I pray and wish that we would have more heroes exposing what our government is doing behind the under the sheets right now.
Absolutely.
That was an interesting episode, but our journey isn't over yet. If you stay tuned, we have an exciting bonus story coming up after this commercial break.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. When it comes to buying a home, the process can be overwhelming and confusing. With so many options, it can be hard to know where to start. That's why it's important to work with a certified mortgage loan originator. I have the knowledge and expertise to guide you through the process and find the best mortgage option for you. I will work with you every step of the way to ensure that you are getting the best deal possible. So if you're looking to purchase or refinance, please reach out to me at 502-680-0953. So don't take on the stress of buying a home alone. Work with me and I will make your dream a reality. Trust the professionals and make your home buying experience a positive one. MLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, MLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is equal housing opportunity.
If you would like to share suggestions for future episodes, an intriguing ghost story, or simply tell us how much you love or hate us, please get in touch with us. You can reach us via email at newsworthy@gmail.com or send us a text at area code 540-709-1318.
And now, back to the story.
And normally I start right in with the bonus story here, but I really want to take a second because I believe in supporting local business, especially when that local business has the opportunity to rake you over the coals and cost you lots of money and chooses not to. If you live in central Kentucky, and they did not pay for this advertising, but if you live in central Kentucky and you have HVAC needs, wants, or questions, please call Noel Clayton out of Frankfort. As an example, for the last 2 weeks, my air conditioning in my personal house has been down. I went and took some steps to fix it. It didn't work, so I assumed it was down. I called them up real quick and I said, "Hey, I have some backup units. I don't need you exclusively anytime soon, but please pencil me in." This morning, as an example, my backup unit went out, so I called them a little more panicked and said, "Hey, I really could use you guys to come out. My backup's down and I have no air conditioning. This weekend is supposed to reach 96." So I called them. They were here within 2 hours. And then they came in, and I had to call my buddy Jerry here to come over and turn my AC on. Long story short, I had actually already fixed the problem, but didn't have the knowledge to reset the system. He came over, did it, was gone in 20 minutes, and everything was wonderful. And frankly, they didn't even charge me a service fee because I'm a returning client. But these guys are honest. He had the opportunity to say, make up some part that I don't have. I'm not an HVAC guy. He could have made up the swizzle diggle
You would have never
thing
known.
that cost $400, and I would have paid him
Or
$400
he
to
could
make my
have
AC
said
work.
2-hour labor fee.
Right. And they didn't do it because they do business the right way at Noel Clayton.
Yep.
He knows that because he does it the right way, anytime I have an issue or as of right now, I'm giving them free advertising because they did such a damn good job. Now to the bonus story. But I do feel like that when you are rewarded with great customer service, you need to brag about that.
Absolutely.
Now to the bonus story. Back in the old days, you know what they used to do to dead people who were famous or rich?
What's that?
They made a death mask.
Okay.
Pretty morbid stuff, right?
Sounds like it.
Tonight we're going to talk about actually Napoleon's death mask. Napoleon's death mask was cast in bronze. The original cast was created 40 hours after his death, in 1821. Napoleon Bonaparte's death mask is a significant historical fact created 40 hours after his death on May 5th in 1821. The original cast of the mask was made approximately 40 hours after his death on the island of St. Helena. St. Helena? There we go. Where he had been exiled to by the British. The process of creating the death mask involved making a plaster cast of Napoleon's face. Dr. Francisco Antomarchi, who was Napoleon's physician during his final years, is often credited with overseeing the creation of the mask, though some sources suggest that Madame Bertrand, the wife of one of Napoleon's loyal generals, also played a role. The original plaster cast served as the basis for several subsequent versions made of different materials, including the bronze. These bronze casts are highly valued because they capture the likeness of Napoleon at the exact moment of his death, providing a poignant yet tangible connection with the historical figure. If you're just looking at the mask, it looks like a dude looking at you. It's really creepy. The Napoleon's death mask is not just a piece of art, but it is also a historic relic that has fascinated people for centuries. Various copies of the mask exist in museums and private collections around the world, each contributing to the legacy and the mystique of Napoleon Bonaparte, who also, by the way, was not short. Just so you know. The bronze versions, in particular, are noted for their durability and the fine details which they preserve, making them enduring symbols of the French emperor.
And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.